that official enough for everyone? Okay.
Perfect.
Great.
I like it.
There's a ring.
Yeah. I'll bring a cowbell next time. I will do a roll call. Steve Whitman, Jack Scarborough, Bonnie Sears, myself, Rebecca Hansen, Chris Buckley, Marianne Barnsley, and Brian Murphy from the town staff. We will next continue on to reviewing the minutes from our public hearing on July 19th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments?
No, I didn't see anything.
Corrections, funny things in the minutes?
Everything was good to me.
I agree.
I make a motion to accept these minutes as is.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Administrative matters, update or continuing work on the master plan. I haven't done anything. Like I said, I've done lots of things, but I haven't done anything on the master plan. Those of you know what my work schedule is like. It gets a little hectic in the summer, so I kind of tend to come home and melt at the end of the day. So I will do my best to get this out. I think it's okay that it's, well, of course I do because I didn't do it, but I hope you all think it's okay. But I think what we really need to do is figure out what our schedule is for, if I can get this done by the end of the weekend, can we get it up as a draft and schedule a hearing for it in, at our next work session? Is that enough time, does everyone think?
Yeah, I make two suggestions just for the board to discuss.
Yep.
I think it's rare that you get it through in one, hearing.
Okay.
Because people don't pay attention until they hear that other people heard about it or
Okay.
heard the presentation. So I think if we could this month get that to a place that we can post that online
Yes,
somewhere.
that was going to be
Yeah.
our first step.
Okay. And then once we know that we can post it online, schedule the first public hearing, but be prepared to have another one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That would be my only suggestion.
Okay. And do
Give
we
people time.
want to be confined to our regular public hearing? Do we want to schedule a separate night? Do we want to do it on a work session? Those are all sort of questions that, because if we're going on public, I don't want to clog up a public, that's not true. It's not clog up a public hearing. This is very valuable stuff. Do we want to do it on a work session night? And then the following month, or do we want, I'm just trying to think of scheduling wise.
I'd offer, for holding the public hearings, because we don't know what business is coming in, we should keep that third Thursday open.
Okay.
Devote the work session time, the first Thursday, to the initial public hearing, and since there's a gap, I mean, we could schedule it the following week,
Okay.
if it suits. That way, it wouldn't interfere with the normal business, and it would just be, we could schedule one after the other that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to aim to do this as quickly as possible, which is what I intended to 2 weeks ago, but get it up onto the website. So let's tentatively, it's helpful for me to have a drop deadline, a deadline.
Do you think you'd have it for 2 weeks from today? Or do you want to go over it with the board before we post it?
I think at this point, I mean, I'm happy to take input and maybe one last quick scan for any remaining errors, but I think at this point we've hit this thing pretty hard, so.
Okay.
I think we've been over it,
So-
over it as much
I would
as we
agree.
can.
Yeah,
do.
I might send it to Bill Bolton one more time just to have him do a look through.
Okay.
And I'll
You could
make
also do that while it's posted and out
Yep.
for review.
Yep. And,
Some other fresh eyes might see something we didn't see and want to
Okay.
change.
okay.
That way you don't have to dig into it twice.
But we have stuff on the docket for
We
the
have one case.
one case, and we know we won't, at this point, the deadline is passed, so we
Yes.
potentially could schedule it for 2 weeks from now. Okay.
Yeah, if you'd like to, and we've done this in the past, is,
Mm-hmm.
hold the work session after the public hearing.
Okay.
And that way, we won't have to schedule a meeting for next week just to do this, and
Okay.
we will be able to get it up. And it's just a matter of handing it over to Joel electronically.
Yep.
If it's in Word, that she prefers that to put it.
In Word.
Yeah, I think, is that correct, Jules?
I would prefer to give it in a PDF.
Put up a PDF.
Okay, I would rather a PDF just because.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're saying, just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, if we can get it to open for a hearing in 2 weeks from tonight, or one more review and then our next work session.
Yeah, if you want to hold the first public hearing in the September work session
Yes,
slot?
okay, yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be better. I'd like to say 2 weeks from now, but I think maybe just accommodating for,
Well, that'll give us a look at it before we post. That's all I was offering for that.
okay. Would anyone, and I think maybe putting out a press release might be a nice thing to do.
Right.
Does anyone have experience writing press releases that would like to, besides me?
You know, they always start with, for immediate release.
Yep. Plymouth, New Hampshire. Yeah,
Where would this appear in the?
we put it in the record enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could also just write a letter to the editor. That might make it a little more
I'd be happy to do that if that takes that off your plate.
awesome. Yeah.
Great.
I'll pass it by you first to make
Yep.
sure it looks good.
Yep, so once we get I get the draft done, and then, and it's on the website, I say we send the letter to the editor, and I think that would be a good way.
How about social media as well? Try to get the word out.
Would you be willing to spearhead
About
that?
to help, yeah. Get it out to some of the other town
Yep.
social media outlets.
Okay. All right.
So that people are seeing it in print media, and if they're on social media, they'll see it that way, they'll start talking about it.
Yep. Okay. Great, this is exciting. Any other ways we can help spread the word? Because, I think it would be great if we had lots of people have lots of really good things to
I'll put
say.
paper postings in all the usual
Okay.
places that we post normally.
Okay. Do we get anything up at the library?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Library, the foyer here, recycling,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes up on PB Cam as well.
Okay.
PBTV, I'm sorry.
Awesome. Any other?
So if that's September 6th, and it's the initial public hearing, it's really kind of an explanation of what we've been up to if people haven't been paying attention.
Yep.
And what the result is, and where they can find it.
Yep.
And in general, kind of
Yep.
why we did the master plan and what we hope to do after it's adopted.
Yeah, and I think really it's just that whole vision chapter is pretty much that information. So, would anyone like to be the one that presents that stuff, or, I can do it.
I'm not going to be here that night.
Okay. Anyone else want to present I'm happy to present the information.
What else?
I think just explaining, we're gonna need a little bit of this is what a master plan is, this is the process we went through. I don't see a PowerPoint or anything like that. I think just explain, I think it'd be, 5 minutes, so. 10 minutes, you think it needs any more than that?
Every town's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think where it's the initial overview, providing 10 minutes of background and
Yeah.
letting people understand the context, but then people are going to want to know what it says, and granted, they have to go and read it, but you may want to highlight some of the things that came up,
Okay,
or the fact that there is a vision and that we have a whole list of implementation
Right.
actions that would be worth review
yep,
by people that are interested.
okay, so I think maybe, go ahead.
No, I'll ask him.
I was just gonna say it might be worth, after the public hearing next week, once we've got the final version of it, to maybe we can all bring our printed copies and just kind of outline what we think, we should
Good
say.
idea.
So, or by we, I mean probably me, but just getting some input, I don't wanna presume that I speak for the group, I'd like to just make sure everyone has.
It's
some
like
input.
5 minutes of speaking,
Five
just
to-
give it 10,
yeah.
just give background. Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably, as the chair, should do that, I would think.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it, I just don't
And-
wanna assume that everyone wants to keep hearing me talk all the time, so.
Well, these people won't have heard
Yeah.
that. But
You guys can just show up like 15 minutes late, it'll be no problem.
is there anything we can expect, Steve? Because you seems like, will people be voicing objections or giving input or asking questions?
It could be if
Yeah,
they
it's a
show
public
up.
hearing.
Yeah.
The worst is when nobody shows up.
Is
right?
that, and does
Yeah.
that happen often?
Yeah,
And I kind of see that for this initial public hearing because
you're probably right.
it won't have risen to anybody's level yet. Even though it's out there, a lot of people have to be brought to the trough.
Right. And I would say the only other thing is people that haven't been tuned in, like Frank. Frank's been tuned in. Other people who have not been tuned in may just fire random questions at the board. Well, what about development on Tenny Mountain Highway? What about downtown? What about the university? And it's going to be hard to answer those questions, but we might be able to provide some examples.
Yep.
you know,
Or
from the implementation.
gently suggest that they read it and then.
Right,
And then
and then
come
we're
back
gonna give them,
next week.
and give them time to
Yeah,
do so, yeah.
Also, other boards, other town boards, it'd be nice to get to the select board, to the conservation commission, so they know that we're reviewing this as well, so, energy committee,
The only other thing I would make sure is clear, because often it's not clear when people show up, is that by adopting the master plan, the planning board has gained no additional powers.
Yeah.
And that any future implementation actions that are regulatory in nature or require money are gonna go back before the voters anyway. So it's just helps give us direction so that we are all moving in the right direction, or moving in a direction that seems that everyone wants to, but we still have to go back and ask for approval. So usually that makes people feel better.
Yeah, but that's part of the overview that Rebecca's gonna give.
I think it's a key part.
What it's
yeah.
not.
Yeah, right.
People often don't listen, you know,
Really?
so, yeah. What'd you say?
the other piece is our Plymouth data book, which is, I haven't looked at it since Reagan has given it to me. Would you be willing to take a peek at in its entirety in the volume 2, chapters 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, well, where can I?
I will send it to you. And I will make sure Brian has a copy of it as a send volume. Because I think it might be helpful to have that as a draft or something. I think it should be mostly good to put up there.
Right. Yeah, it'd be nice to adopt it
Yep.
as a component of
Yep.
volume 1.
To Chris. And then the other thing, I think at the same time, just to make this whole thing kind of complete, have the survey results and anything from North Country Council that was reporting back from any of the work sessions, just have those as if we can have like I don't know how the website is, how it gets edited, but if we can have those those supporting pieces that, just think that transparency is important, so.
I'm not.
So there was, I think the North Country Council did a report of the survey.
Okay.
And of the focus groups.
Yeah, the focus groups, all those work groups that we had. So just that information, I think. From NCC. And I'm pretty sure you have that, Brian.
Somewhere.
Yep. So, but I just think having all that information, so when people say, well, where's the town input on that? We can say, well, here's the results from the survey, and
That's a good point.
because this has been a longer process than we expected. I think maybe people are thinking we're on like a third master, different master plan.
Yeah,
So,
they still doing that?
yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So I am going to do the edit, send you the volume 2, just to make sure it looks okay. And they're going to come in 3 different files, which I think will just be easier. And we will start inviting, I think we'll give a thumbs up at the next meeting. So,
Good. It's getting there.
yeah. And I'm going to have to just commit myself to sitting in front of the computer for a few hours some evening coming up. So maybe tomorrow.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this need to go for town meeting?
Not the master plan. No, any zoning changes have to go before but the master plan, just as long as it goes before a public hearing, that is sufficient, so.
And I think the nice thing about having 2 public hearings is gives people ample chance for input so that we can have some confidence we're adopting something that a few other people may stand up for as well.
Typically, a lot of the other two public hearings are statutorily, imposed, but, we'll like do the budgets with the selectmen's office.
Right.
We'll go through it page by page. If there's no comments or questions, the second hearing is canceled, but we can't really do this because we're providing it fresh
Right.
at the first one, so, we pretty much have to have, because I doubt there'll be much input, from that first one, other than basically general questions about the whole process, but, give them a chance to look at it. And
That's amazing. Some towns won't do a second one. No one shows up, no comments, it's approved. And people are like, what?
Yeah,
The other thing I'm thinking, that if we don't want to plug up our September with meetings, that we get to our meeting on September 6th it is.
Yep.
And we don't have anything on the docket, we could always bump the second hearing to our next scheduled meeting. You know, see what I'm saying? Yeah, or we could just do the next Thursday, so. So,
So, and I'm sorry if I'm sure I just missed something, but before that first meeting, we'll have something posted they can look at, or not? Yeah, so theoretically, they could have looked.
Yes.
And that's why the press release is important, because
Right.
it will alert them
Yep.
that it's posted. Okay,
it's
so I
available
might
on the
need.
town's website,
Yeah,
or,
Yeah, all right.
We'll probably use some of your press release language for the social media posts as well.
Yeah, that's what I
Consistency.
was thinking. And, also Jen's real good with social media too, so if that.
The more it spreads, the better.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
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 I'm not very helpful with that these days, so, you know, not doing that.
Get it
so.
out there.
Yeah. But I can ask some other people to help.
That'd be great.
Okay. All right, so just to review timeline, so our next meeting is August 15th. And we will just final thumbs up to proceed with our media blitz,
August
right?
15th or
14th. 16th. I don't even know what's today.
I'll check.
16th makes sense.
16th.
I was trying to do.
That was when they were going to, what they had said in the paper on the 16th was going to be something to do with the, the old bakery,
Yes,
Okay.
right?
yes.
And then 9/6 will be the first public hearing. All right. Great. Any other comments on the master plan?
That's good.
New business.
New business is old business, Madam Chair.
What, is it
Our old
something to do
friend,
with the zoning?
Recreation. We had a case that was going before the ZBA next week. That was our friends with the Froyo and the VR stuff. There's two headings in, and I gave you copies of those pages from the zoning ordinance. One is the table of uses, and it shows indoor/outdoor recreation with a whole bunch of special exceptions. And then it has indoor recreation. There's no definition for indoor-outdoor recreation. There's qualifiers in the outdoor recreation about having buildings only associated with the outdoor recreation. I think they were probably envisioning batting cages or something like that out in the fields for that. But there's a lot of built-out buildings along Tenny Mountain Highway, where if somebody had wanted to put out a billiards hall, for example, an approved use, it's a special exception out there, but it's a permitted use downtown. Why wouldn't we have indoor recreation permitted on Tenny Mountain Highway? That's my question. The other is, I think that we'll need to straighten out that table for the next amendment season and drop the indoor/outdoor and just have two separate categories.
I agree.
I would agree
It's
too.
very confusing. I had misread it initially and recommended that they go to the ZBA for indoor recreation. And I looked at it again, and it's like, wait a minute, it was just awful. And of course, there was leasing issues. There were other things that caused the meeting to be dropped, but that alone, I think, would have had me pause the meeting, because after review, it's clear that it's a permitted use in the downtown area, so.
So add outdoor recreation,
Or
outdoor.
just scratch indoor from that one line, but that would have to be done at town meeting.
I am writing this down on this list. Do you have a running list of this zoning wish list?
A couple, and it's basically mental.
Okay,
This one came up recently, the other was the looking at setbacks in built-up areas to make it consistent. And just,
okay.
And one of the other ones we talked about was the overnight accommodations,
everybody's having a problem with that one.
right? But I think you had found a gap, right, in the types of units or numbers of units that we
Oh,
didn't quite
yeah.
have a
I'd have to-
category for.
that came up with the barn on the Pamias, I recall.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it may just be adding a new definition
Right.
into residential stuff.
Okay.
As I was walking out the door, I meant to find this notebook that I have, that we can just keep a running list of all this stuff and we can just add, but I was running out the door and didn't have it, so. Yeah. But that's my intention. It'll probably take a few more meetings before I remember to put something like that together, but I think just having some sort of list that we can reference,
Good idea.
because otherwise it's, we might not even pick it up by reading through the minutes either, so. So I'll do my best to try and remember to do that. And if anyone thinks of any of those other weird zoning things that we've come up with, Brian, what's the date for when we need, we probably need to start working about that one, on that in September, I would think.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to count back. They don't generally publish the legislative calendar this early. Because everything's fiscal year, so should be coming out in the next couple of months. But figure December-ish is when you really have to start thinking, because it's all based on counting backwards from town meeting.
Good. Just like to be ahead of it instead of freaking out in December that we haven't
Yes.
thought about it yet, so.
Would that be the time we would maybe revisit something like our agricultural zone that seems,
I think we need to sit down with our zoning ordinance, and this will be September, maybe early October is the first time we tackle this, where everyone has a chance to sit down and go through the annual meeting, just Saturday for work. The master plan, once that's put to bed and it exists, then I think we need to look at the zoning ordinance and just kind of triage what we think we can handle this year. And a lot of I think it's gonna be a little bit of cleanup at first, before we can really look at big picture. I think there's some emergent issues that we need to deal with first, before we can really think about how to overall deal with the
Right,
zoning.
and we'll schedule our joint meeting somewhere in that
Yep.
too, with the ZBA.
So, does that sound like that makes sense? Yeah, I just think there's so many like little things that don't make sense now that we might not be able to catch if we're trying to do this big picture thing, which I think might be like a good 6-month project for us to really, I don't even know, but I think it's gonna require more effort than what we can put forth, in the next couple months, so.
And I don't think it would hurt if we get the administrative stuff figured out, and then it has to go through the public hearing process. If we do have time to then start kind of that regulatory audit, what have we said in this new master plan? What does the future land use map look like? What are the implementation actions saying? What are the issues, barriers, opportunities with our existing zoning? So I think, and I'll have more time, so I'd be willing to help with that too.
Good.
So.
All right. Anything else from the board? Does anyone who is on another committee or board, commission, have any updates?
maybe. I went out with, that piece of property on Tenny Mountain that was given to the town, it's landlocked. A couple of us went out the other day, Greg Netner with his GPS, the guy's so high-tech, but we found all the corners except for one we're a little shaky on, and of course, that was this thing was a big piece of property that was subdivided, but we looked for encroachment, we walked all the boundaries, some of it is, this removed from rock climbing. I mean, we were
Wow.
like, it was crazy up there. So it's not it's an intro, the town owns this thing, and it's pretty steep, somewhat inaccessible, fourth growth woodland. But, there's some potential there for recreation, I guess. I don't think there's like it was mentioned in the Conservation Commission, maybe it could be a town forest. I just think that the expense of getting up there to get any of, whatever's up there for trees is never going to pay off. And then there was also talk about, maybe letting the mountain bikers have it up there. Once again, it's so steep and rocky, I don't know, these guys seem to be able to ride anywhere, but that would put that would challenge them quite a bit. So it's just this interesting piece of land that now we finally kind of know where it sits, and I believe part of that is the boundary between Plymouth and Groton.
Okay, yeah.
Which is, I don't know if that's how official that is, but I know at one time there was some question about where that boundary sat. So there's a blazed boundary there, but I don't know who blazed it. I don't know if it was Forco or whoever manages the property on the other side.
How did you get up there? What route?
Well, it was interesting. Greg found this on Google Maps or something. We went in through 9th State, that 9th State,
yeah.
whatever that place is, indoor recreation. And we parked behind that and went up some logging roads. I've never been in that area before, so it was really kind of interesting. And if anyone's interested in picking blackberries, probably in another week, I mean, you could look at my legs, how torn up they are. But there was incredible amount of blackberries that are just getting ready to get ripe on all those old skidder roads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was, I thought it has, it's town property, so it's good to get the word out.
Absolutely.
Is there, anything updated from the zoning board, Jack?
Our meeting next week's canceled.
It's a nice update.
Yeah.
And I did see in the paper that the town is trying to put together an economic development committee, something like
Yeah, I
that.
did
Saw that too.
I think that would be great if we had a planning board member on that, so.
So Steve?
No, but thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone thinks they might be interested, I think that'd be awesome, but.
Bridget's not here,
Yeah.
but she's
Wow.
but she's on another committee.
Library.
She's on library.
Board.
What does that consist of? Economic development, what do they do?
All I know is what I read in the paper, that I think the idea is, from what I read in the paper, that we're dealing with not a lot of tax revenue generation in the town, and trying to build out Tenny Mountain further so that we don't see further hikes in our taxes, basically.
Well, I might be interested in that.
So,
Okay.
but,
And it's about strategies to bring them in. A lot of times it's quid pro quos on
As
the
long
time
as
of
it
the
isn't
town.
something where you gotta rely on a computer, because if it is, well, you know that that's not me.
yeah.
If I can use the telephone, I'm fine. Other than that,
Yeah, I don't know much. I don't know much about it. I just thought that as we're talking about bringing business, I mean, that whatever's going to come in is going to come before us as well. So having that link to the economic development, I think would be good. But
Well, and I think if Bonnie's willing to do it, she's been through the master plan process, so she knows that if stuff comes up, she can suggest that they also take a look at the
Yeah.
master plan, or talk to us if we're working on zoning
Yeah.
changes that could help with what's trying to be done.
Yep.
So that would be
Yeah.
good.
I think it'd be awesome. So it was in not today's paper, but I think last week's paper.
yeah, I remember reading
Yeah,
about it
so-
and thinking about it and saying, no,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Well, tomorrow I'll see if they got a list going, and I'll throw your name on if you want me
Okay,
to.
go ahead, yeah.
Okay.
No pressure from here, but it would be nice to get if we don't have a representative, it might be nice to, and I think with the Energy Commission, just somebody who's the liaison to those commissions, so that we can sort of get an update from those boards, so. Yeah, and likewise, we should be giving them updates as well, so.
Right.
We're not just listeners here.
Yeah, I'll typically push all the information at the board meetings that I attend to the Board of Selectmen, just so they can answer the questions in the field.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have anything else. Anybody? Yes?
If nobody has anything further.
Oh, I'm sorry, Frank.
Right on
Sorry.
the agenda. Talk to Frank.
Yes, I will, it's at my discretion. Sure, please come. Hi, Frank.
Hello. Thanks. First, commenting about, you're talking about housing issues with respect with the zoning ordinance. I went through this before, and what I did was went through the description, the definitions from the life safety codes, the international building codes, the state legislature codes, so that whatever system these new and evolving types of residentials. Tried so that we all have the same definition, because when someone comes in, you make an application, they get approved here, but then it goes from another agency to another agency, and a lot of times you have what they call technical infeasibilities, so that the process is difficult, because one agency will approve it and the other one won't. And as far as a quick fix to the existing zoning ordinance, would like to see it, that one on the parking ordinance, where it talks about the minimum number of spaces for the smallest unit, which is the single-family house, which is 2 spaces, but it has not less than 125% of the minimum. And if the minimum is 2 spaces, you can't build less than 2.5 spaces. It should read not less than 100% of the minimum required spaces. So if you read it, the logic is, you're just telling these people a single family house is the smallest unit on a separate piece of land that has to have 2 spaces. So in order to comply, you would build 2 spaces or provide an area for 2 spaces. If you say not less than 125%, you're trying to obligate them to do something that's not reasonable, fair, and has no valid. And of course, it gets to court, it gets thrown out. So if we just say not less than 100%, then if they want to go to the zoning board to say, I only need 1 space, if they deem it appropriate, then they get it. If not, and the same thing with right below that 125% is not more than 150%. So it really needs to go to the 100% of the minimum stated spaces required. And of course, if you get into housing, it's prorated over units and so on like that. But I think that one little catch in our existing zoning ordinance on parking, I think we need to look at.
I'll add it to the list, but I might ask you to explain it again in the future.
Kind of familiar with what he said.
Okay.
It's conflicting within itself.
Okay.
Right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Now,
Moment we've all been waiting for.
if nobody has anything further to add, I would make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I figured there wasn't any, all right?
Means the public has to leave here.
Thank you for not.